I'm not gonna lie, this story scared me. It really did scare me. So get ready. So there's this girl who had a best friend named Abigail. They both graduated school, so now they're in college, but she says how she continues to see Abigail because Abigail's grandmother lives down the street from her and she would come every weekend to take care of her grandmother. So because she was only there to take care of her grandma, she was never able to come out and party with her. So the girl and her sister would actually go to Abigail's grandma's house and they would hang out with her. That way she can have some company while she was there. She mentions that because of them going over to Abigail's grandma's house, her little sister also became very best friends with Abigail too. She also mentions that every time they would go visit Abigail at their grandmother's house, they never saw the grandmother because she was bedridden and she was very ill, so she was never around. So she decided to come home from college because it was right before Christmas and her family was throwing a party. When she arrives home, one of her cousins tells her that they actually saw Abigail down at her grandmother's house and they also saw a lot of people over there, and she thought to herself, hey, maybe they were having a party too, and maybe I can go ask Abigail if she wants to come to my party, being that a lot of people are there and she doesn't have to stay at her grandmother's house to take care of her because there might be somebody else there that could. Her mother also mentioned how long it's been since she's even seen Abigail, so she decided to get her little sister and head over to Abigail's grandmother's house so they can invite her to the party. However, when they arrive to Abigail's grandmother's house, all the lights are off, there's no sound like somebody's in the house, but they do notice that the gate on the side of the house is opened, and Abigail and her grandmother would always have that gate closed. So they thought to themselves, maybe there is a party going on, but it's behind the house and not inside, and that's why the gate is open. So they decided to go through the gate. So after going through the gate and seeing that there was actually no one in the back of the house, they decided to just go ahead and knock on the front door, but there was no response. So when no one responded, she told her little sister that maybe there was nobody at home, and she started to walk away. But her little sister decided to knock the door so hard, there's no way that nobody heard it. She mentions that her little sister has always been very carefree and outspoken, and of course she would do that and embarrass her, but that's what she decided to do, so she just stood by her to see if maybe somebody came to the door. So as they're waiting by the door, they actually start to hear noises in the house a little further away, like if someone was walking towards the front door. They heard when the person got to the door, but they never opened it. Not only did the person in the house never open the door, but they never even said anything, so they decided to ask for Abigail. After asking, they could hear somebody having like a hard time breathing, like they were breathing really hard, but there was no response, so they repeated themselves, can you please tell me if Abigail's home? We just want to see her. So after that, the person behind the door unlocks it, and her little sister goes to push the door in and open it, but she stops her. She thought to herself, I don't think Abigail's here. She would have already opened the door. I'm thinking it's her grandmother having the hardest time opening the door for us, thinking that we're her family members and we need to get out of here because this doesn't feel good. So they rush out of there and they're on their way home, and right before they get home, they run into Abigail's brother Felix, except for he's crying and they're asking him if he's okay, and he says no. Felix tells them that his grandmother passed away that morning, and obviously they gave him a hug and they gave him their condolences. After that, she decides to ask Felix if Abigail was home, in which he says no because that same morning one of their aunts got sick, so Abigail went with the aunt to the hospital, and as a matter of fact, the only person in that house is their grandmother's dead body. The only person in that house was the body of their grandmother, and the reason why he was walking towards that house is because he was gonna go and wait for the ambulance to come and get the body from the house. She mentions how as soon as he said it, she was just like, what the... And how she looked at her sister and she could tell that her sister's thinking this exact same thing, but obviously they didn't want to tell him that. But they were freaked out because they clearly heard someone in that house that sounded like the grandmother opening that door. After that, they went home, and she mentions that they never even saw Abigail until the day of the funeral, and how they wouldn't dare even tell her what happened at that moment, and till this day they never told her, but they still wonder like what would have happened. I got chills, what the fuck. Till this day they still wonder what they would have seen if they had opened that door. By the way, this story comes from Relatos de Noche, and let me just tell you, these stories are 1,000 times more scarier in Spanish, so if you can listen to Spanish stories, please go check them out. They're fucking amazing.